Perfect. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Senate Committee on Government Affairs, and thank you all for joining us, and thank you for your patience as we work through this day. And I will start with roll call, please.
Vice Chair Orenshaw.
Here.
Senator Gokachia.
Here.
Senator Neal. Here. Senator Hansen. Here. Chair Don Daraloop.
Here. Thank you very much, and all are present. I'm going to spare you all the rules and regulations because I think by now we know them. And we're going to go out of order today. We're going to start with Assembly Bill 485 with respect to our military, and we will hear that bill first. So with that being said, please come forward. And this measure amends provisions related to emergency management. And Mr. Ferguson and Major General Barry, welcome. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some prepared remarks. I can read through them, or we can just put them in the notes. So you just tell me, and I'll go either way.
This is the day that you get to do whatever makes you happy. This is almost the last day of class, Major General. This is your lucky day. So if you would like to say a few words and then put them in for documentation, you are welcome to do that, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I will read through some of them, and I appreciate that. First of all, good afternoon, or good evening. I'm not sure what time it is. So good afternoon, Madam Chair, and the members of the Senate Committee on Government Affairs. I'm Major General Andre Berry. On behalf of Governor Sisolak, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to testify on AB 485. The proposed bill will amend existing law as well as transfer the Division of Emergency Management and its powers and duties from the Department of Public Safety to the Office of the Military. Additionally, this bill will grant the Adjutant General authority over the Division of Emergency Management and will revise provisions governing the Adjutant General. To assist the committee with any questions, in attendance with me today in person and virtually is Director George Tagliati, the Director of the Nevada Department of Public Safety, Deputy Director Sherry Bergerman, the Deputy Director of the Nevada Department of Public Safety, Chief Dave Fogerson, Chief of the Nevada Division of Emergency Management, Lieutenant Colonel Brent Compton, Director of Joint and Domestic Operations of the Nevada National Guard, Mr. Justin Luna, Administrative Services Officer to the Nevada Division of Emergency Management, Lieutenant Colonel Kevin Remus, the State Judge Advocate to the Nevada National Guard. It has been no more than 1 year since the COVID-19 pandemic ushered in the largest and lengthiest emergency response in our state's 156-year history. Partnering lockstep throughout the entirety of this emergency response has been the outstanding professional cooperation between the men and women of the Nevada National Guard and the Nevada Division of Emergency Management. As the virus began to spread rapidly in March of 2020, Governor Sisolak directed and entrusted these two agencies in leading an elevated and unprecedented role in the state's emergency response. Without haste, these amazing men and women have coordinated a variety of missions to include the tremendous logistical movement and storage of personal protective equipment, the distribution of food items to our most vulnerable residents, the construction and employment of mass community-based testing sites, and the facilitation of multiple vaccine distribution sites across Nevada. To provide an overview of this proud service to you, here's the state's COVID-19 response by the numbers. 4,900 resource requests fulfilled to local, county, and non-government partner organizations, 10 million articles of personal protective equipment distributed to frontline responders, 2.9 million meals distributed to residents across the state, 860,000 COVID-19 tests conducted, 400,000 COVID-19 tests distributed to Nevada school districts for safe reopening, 1.75 million vaccines supported at multiple sites throughout the state, 5,500 vaccines delivered by 2 mobile vaccine units to tribal and rural Nevada residents, and 721,000 vaccines directly administered in the arms of Nevada residents. This historical relationship between the Nevada National Guard and Nevada Division of Emergency Management has been tried and tested long before the arrival of this deadly virus. Operating day to day in shared workspaces at the State Emergency Operations Center in Carson City, these outstanding teams have historically, time and again, ensured the proper funding, planning, execution, recovery, and assessment of multiple challenging emergencies. These challenging emergencies include annual wildfires, search and rescue, floods, civil disturbance, hazardous material response, and large-scale events such as New Year's Eve in Las Vegas. Bottom line, the success of this historical partnership is the nexus to the governor's intent of this bill. The fiscal impact to the state is not expected. This realignment will include a movement of 46 state employees from the Department of Public Safety to the Office of the Military, and will additionally transition the obligations, authorities, and responsibilities of the Nevada Division of Emergency Management as it exists today. The supervision of the Chief of the Division will transfer from the Director of Public Safety to the Adjutant General, and the Cabinet position will remain within the Office of the Governor. Without reservation, these emergency response professionals from our very own communities will continue to lead Nevada through our recovery and beyond. Your state emergency response team is always ready, always there, neighbors helping neighbors. Thank you, Madam Chair, and the members of this committee for your time today. The state representatives and I are ready to answer questions and are happy to walk through the mechanics involved with any section of this bill.
Thank you very much, Major General. Mr. Ferguson, do you have comments, please?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you very much. Then does that conclude your presentation, or do you have anything else you would like to add before we go to questions from the committee?
I'm prepared for questions.
All right, thank you very much. All right, questions committee. Senator Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I had a question on Section 7, which gives the office the duties, I guess, and powers of a peace officer to the Chief of the Division of Emergency Management of the Office of the Military. Can we, yeah, it's pretty significant. So can we discuss that, please?
To the Senator, through the Chair, David Fogerson, Nevada Emergency Manager, Homeland Security Chief. Absolutely great question, ma'am. Currently, what we did when we wrote the bill is we took everything that, any duty, responsibility, authority that was vested in the Division of Emergency Management as it sat underneath the Department of Public Safety, and we moved it to the Office of Military. The Chief's position currently is listed as a peace officer under the DPS statutes, and so we decided to move that rather than leave that out. The one advantage it does provide for that position, it's not that they're a post-certified gun-toting individual, but they retain the peace officer status so we can share law enforcement sensitive information with them. And where that comes important, I came into the position in late October. I came with a security clearance, and so I was able to immediately receive a secret brief on anything, any worries, elections, and everything that was going on at that time relating to the pandemic. Had somebody without a security clearance come in, they would not have been able to receive any of that information, so we left this in here so we at least, in future positions, when that person comes in, they could have that law enforcement sensitive information and be privy to that.
Okay, thank you for the response. But the insertion into 289 is how broad? What's the scope? How limited are you? Because it just seems like you just dropped into the chapter, which then makes me believe that the insertion into 289 then rolls you into other powers, duties, benefits in 289.
To the Senator, through the Chair, David Fogerson, Nevada Emergency Manager, Homeland Security Chief. It's the same powers that the position holds right now when we sit underneath the DPS position. So no one's ever utilized any of those peace officer powers as the Chief of DEM that I've ever been aware of, no in the last few of them. However, we just left that in the bill from what the existing powers from the Chief's position was. So I don't think there's any intent to expand it or do any of those things. We just wanted to make sure that when we said we moved everything over from the current responsibilities, authorities, and responsibilities, we moved everything over without leaving anything out.
And through the Senator, through the Chair to Senator Neal, Major General Barry, this is also pretty customary to what we see to the agencies that we have researched around the country where DEM comes under the Office of the Military. So it's just pretty customary practice in terms of some of the language and responsibilities.
Okay, thank you for that. So, Madam Chair, can I ask just on another sections?
Absolutely.
So in Section 18, this is the portion of the bill where it's talking about the Board of Trustees, and this is consulting with the charter schools for design, construction, and then it also has an insertion for the school police officers, and then at the end, it puts in the Office of the Military. Can you explain I guess when certain sections of the bill, I felt, okay, that makes sense. And then other sections of the bill, I had like question marks, like, okay, but why in these particular sections? What will be the interaction or the relationship that occurs in Section 18 and NRS 388262?
To the Senator, through the chair, David Fulgerson, Nevada Emergency Manager and Homeland Security Chief. Great question. You would be amazed at how many places in the NRS the Division of Emergency Management is embedded, looking at how the whole community approach to bringing people together. And this is, again, existing language from where DEM has the authority to be in there, and so we're just moving to the Office of Military. What this is designed for is we're part of the school safety task forces. We house the school plans in the event of an emergency, so that way we are the secure repository for them. We work with the Nevada System of Higher Education, we work with the superintendent of schools, and work on that safety aspect. So that way we're looking at it from the law enforcement aspect, the behavioral health aspect, the fire aspect, the emergency medical services aspect, and then that whole range of emergency management things of shelter and evacuations for those children in those environments. And it's in the various sections for the normal schools, for the charter schools, and for the private schools. That authority's been in there, and I believe it's from last legislative session that we've been working on that process.
Thank you for that. And so, and thank you for that background, because I was wondering about that and wondering, what would your role be around suicide, which is in Section 20, where you're then inserted. And then you just said behavioral health specialty, but I've just never seen that role attributed, because this is the development committee around suicide and crisis emergency.
To the Senator, through the chair, David Fulgerson, Emergency Manager and Homeland Security Chief. Absolutely. And I believe there's a bill this session to change the name of that from the Development Committee, because originally, if I recall correctly, and I'm going back a few years, the NRS was about school safety plans related to suicide. And then I believe it was last session they expanded that so it wasn't just about child suicide, it was about truly school safety. And I'm going to have to admit that I might not know all the background there, but from being in local government, I remember the expansions there. But emergency management, the cool thing about emergency management is we really don't have a lot of authority, but we have a lot of friends. And what we can do is help write a plan so that way the plan is not law enforcement focused, fire focused, behavioral health focused. We figure out how to get all those people together, and that's what we're good about, is having parties where people get together and work collaboratively to fix the issue rather than looking at those silos.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And I have before I go to the Vice Chair, I have a question on this same section where it says in Section 18, if the county has not designated a full-time employee to serve as emergency manager and does not have school police officers, Division of Emergency Management. Do you go through all that list before you actually get to the Office of Military? Or, as you were just suggesting, are they partners and you all get together at once?
Madam Chair, Dave Fulgerson, Nevada Emergency Manager, Homeland Security Chief. It greatly depends upon what the interaction that the community wants. Sometimes we're at the table. I do have an employee that's on the school safety task force for the state and works very heavily with the school superintendent's office. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the name of her office there, and works with the school communities. We do an annual safety conference with them. So sometimes they reach out directly to us for advice. And then other times it is, no, we're good with local government and but we are the repository for their plans in the end.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair?
Thank you, Chair, and I appreciate everything you've done for our constituents during the pandemic. Thank you, General Berry. Thank you, Chief. My question, the relationship with FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Association, has it been collaborative? When things have arisen where we've needed their help, and where do you see it going? Thank you.
To the Senator, through the chair, David Fulgerson, Nevada Emergency Manager, Homeland Security Chief. Great question about FEMA. They are wonderful partners for us. FEMA really strives to do it's federally supported, state-led, locally executed, so every disaster is local, just like all politics are local. And they do a nice job of that, to the point that we have, I believe this morning, we have 175 FEMA employees still in the state helping us with the COVID pandemic. Before the pandemic started, FEMA actually deployed they call it a FIT. It's a FEMA Incident Team member, I believe, and has been here to help guide, prior to me becoming the chief, the prior chief, through the process of how the federal and state interacts. Our State Emergency Operations Center right now has got 7 FEMA employees in it, and we call them FEMItes, and they are right there with us all the time, and they're good friends, and they take good care of us. We take good care of them. It's a very collaborative relationship. There's a new FEMA administrator that has just started, and we go to meet her next month to have those conversations about how we do stuff in the future and how we move forward.
Thank you very much, Chief Fulkerson. Thank you, Major General Berry. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. And I have a question on section 24. It says the chief of the Division of Emergency Management serves at the pleasure of the general, maintains powers and duties. So is that because that person changes, can be appointed differently?
Madam Chair, David Fulkerson, Nevada Emergency Manager, Homeland Security Chief. The current position is appointed by the Department of Public Safety Director, and so we just moved all the authorities that the DPS Director had to the Adjutant General.
And Madam
Okay.
Chair, General
Yes,
Berry,
sir.
that would remain the exact same.
Thank you very much. And I see the director on the big screen up there. We want to make sure he gets his time in the process here. He got all dressed up, so we'll ask you, Director Tagliati, if you'd like to weigh in. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can't say enough about the relationship we've had over the past couple of years, particularly with COVID, with the National Guard. And obviously, they've done just a terrific job. And I think that also made us aware that with all of the dangers we may have on the medical front and also the natural disasters that are always we may be facing, whether it's wildfires or floods, that the emergency management team would be better served under the Office of the Military. And they're even located there. They're right on the same location, same campus, if you will, with the National Guard. So I think this is a win-win for us. And that working relationship is going to really help us as well, because one of the points that I like to mention is the fact that there's a Homeland Security piece to this. And the Emergency Management Division is involved not only with FEMA and the federal government. Also, they have a lot of the funding goes through them. They're also set up all of our Homeland Security Commission. The governor chairs that commission as far as what resources may be available by the feds, et cetera, et cetera. The governor also names the Homeland Security Advisor. So it is really still going to be a close relationship with the Department of Public Safety. But God forbid we have a situation where there's a disaster that would involve something of a criminal nature, which was our worries years ago, and not too far away. But we still will have that relationship that we can fall back with not only with the National Guard, but with the Division of Emergency Management, because we make such a good team. So I'm very comfortable with this transition. I think it became apparent. This is a model, I had looked at it in the state of Arizona. And when COVID hit, certainly it made a lot of sense. The National Guard has the resources that better serve the state of Nevada.
Thank you very much, sir, and we thank you for your leadership. And I think there's a couple more questions, so stay tuned. Senator Gokachia, did you have a question? Okay, the director answered his question. Another question down here, Senator Hansen, Senator Neal. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I had a question on section 49. So this is the provision where it says the money collected or received, and then you're struck out. And I know it says deposited with the state treasurer for the credit and appropriation. So how does this payment structure work now that you've been merged under? Is the Office of the Military going to be paid? What would be normally distributed to you, and how does that work?
To the Senator, through the Chair, David Fulkerson, Nevada Homeland Security, Emergency Manager and Homeland Security Chief. It's a mouthful of a thing to say. Sorry. This was earlier I did say that we didn't strike anything, and I got to tell you that we did strike one thing, because this is the one part when we looked with it with the legal counsel, no one could figure out what this meant, because we all knew that the money has to go to Treasury. The money's the state money. So our Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General said, I don't know if this makes sense having this in here anymore, so if we cross that out, it's still going to go to the state and be fine there. So that was our justification behind crossing out, was that the legal counsel couldn't figure out what that sentence really intended to do.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, additional questions? All right, we will go to public testimony, support, opposition, and neutral. So if you'd like to step back, then we'll call you up for closing remarks in a few minutes. All right, we'll start with support in the room. Do we have anybody in the room who would like to testify in support of Senate Bill 485? If not, we'll go to the Zoom, and then we'll go to the phone lines, broadcasting.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to testify in support of AB 485, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in support of AB 485, please press star 9 now. Chair, you have no callers in support at this time.
Thank you very much. Then we'll go to opposition in the room. Do we have anybody in opposition? If we don't, we'll go to the calls, broadcasting.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to testify in opposition of AB 485, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much. Then we'll go to neutral, please.
If you would like to testify neutral on AB 485, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers neutral at this time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Then we'll close public hearing. Do you have anything else you'd like to say, Mr. Ferguson or Major General? Any closing remarks?
Madam Chair, General Barry, you'll never ask me that question.
They say the same thing about me, Major General.
Okay, well, I feel good. First of all, I just want to thank the committee for our hearing us today, and I strongly believe that we have a best practice in place. I go off of what Director Tagliati said. This will be a win-win. This comes under the direction of Governor Sisolak. We've had a very outstanding working relationship with the Department of Emergency Management and its leadership. And I believe one of the biggest reasons we were able to be as successful during this pandemic is because of the partnership and the collaboration and willingness to work together. So I look forward to the continued success of us working together regardless. And again, thank you, and we look forward to, again, Nevada National Guard, always ready, always there. Thank you.
And we all thank you for everything you've done during this last year and a half and before that, and I'm sure in the future. So thank you very much, and thank you for being here. Mr. Fogerson, anything to add?
No, ma'am, thank you.
All righty. All right. If you'd step back, and everybody that knows me knows I like to get things off my plate. So I would like to entertain a motion to pass Assembly Bill 485.
So moved, Chair.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair, second. Second from Senator Neal. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. And I'll take the floor statement on that, and thank you very much for being here with us today. And that's how we roll in government affairs. Thank you very much, those of you that are on the screen, and thank you, Director Tagliati, for joining us. And we'll move on to the next bill. You're welcome to stay. It's quite fun in here. Thank you very much. All righty. Then we'll go to Assembly Bill 220, because we have Speaker present. Welcome, Speaker. I've seen you more in my committee than I've seen you in the halls, so glad you're here, sir. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, for the record, my name is Jason Frierson, Assemblyman for District 8, Speaker of the Nevada State Assembly, and I am here to present Assembly Bill 220, which simply prohibits peace officers from using mobile applications that encrypt communications on official and publicly issued cell phones. I'll walk through the short provisions of the bill, but I want to express why I brought this bill forward. First off, I want to make it very clear that this bill is only applicable to work phones. It does nothing to prohibit or control how peace officers use their personal phones. This bill before you is merely about transparency. If our peace officers use encrypted communication on their work phones, those communications that normally would be discoverable inherently become hidden from the public and the legal process. Discovery, of course, is the formal process of exchanging information between parties concerning witness and evidence that they would present in court. Discovery methods include depositions, written interrogatories, subpoenas of books, records, and other documents for inspection. Physical exams, submittal of documents for examination to determine whether or not they are genuine. Typically, email messages, text messages, and other forms of electronic communications are discoverable, as long as they are not covered by attorney-client privilege or covered by the work product exception or exemption, such as internal reports and documents of the prosecution or the defense. A peace officer could be involved in discovery in several ways: as a witness to a crime, as a criminal defendant, as a party or witness in a civil case. In all of these situations, statements, papers, documents, and tangible objects in their possession, including emails and texts, would likely be subject to discovery. As technology advances, it's imperative that all of us update our standards to ensure that we don't lose sight of transparency and, frankly, fairness to the process. I'll now go through the sections of the bill. Section 1, subsection 1 requires law enforcement agencies to develop a written policy that sets forth standards of conduct for using publicly issued and official mobile devices. Section 1, subsection 2A requires that written policies include mobile applications that are approved for use on official mobile devices. Subsection 1, subsection 2B, Section 1, subsection 2B prohibits the use of mobile applications that are not expressly approved. Lastly, Section 1, subsection 3 prohibits the use of mobile applications that use end-to-end encryption with the intent. And I think it's important that it's clear that it prohibits the use of these mobile applications that use end-to-end encryption with the intent to avoid the creation, retention, or lawful discovery of records or data relating to communication of peace officers. In conclusion, I think this bill serves as a reasonable measure to protect public trust in our law enforcement agencies and ensure technology does not prohibit transparency and accountability. I also want to thank members of the law enforcement community that worked with me to get to this point. We've been talking since last year about the fact that we have to come together. We have to advance policies that allow law enforcement to do their jobs effectively. But we don't get the kind of result unless we work together. And so this is the result of having worked with law enforcement to make sure that they're able to do their job, that we're not getting in the way of certain encrypted technology that they use in order to do their job, but simply providing that they are not allowed to use this type of technology with the intent to hide information or evidence. And so with that, I would welcome any questions.
Thank you very much, Speaker. And questions from the committee? Senator Neal.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So I just had one quick question. So when I read it, the first thing I thought about was it was something that was brought to me about, I think it was a police officer incident where they were able to use their phone and they played music and they blocked, I guess, I don't know if it was words that were being said and whether or not there was going to be an application of this to that.
Jason Frierson, for the record. Thank you for the question, Senator. I don't believe that this addresses that. I think that that would be an evidentiary matter and for example, a criminal case about spoiling evidence, essentially. I think that that would be addressed in that regard. But this is intended to address new applications. I mean, Signal is the application that I think started and gave rise to it, where you can set it up for it to disappear in 30 seconds, and once it disappears, it's gone. And quite frankly, If it's not approved to be on a work cell phone anyway, then they shouldn't be putting an application on a work cell phone. What they do on their private cell phone is of course their business. But if it's a work cell phone and they have policies that allow for only work-approved applications to be on that device, we had originally prohibited putting in end-to-end encryption, allowing it to be used at all. And then we found out that law enforcement actually uses it for valid purposes. And so if they use it for valid purposes, then they have policies that dictate how they can use it. And this is just intended to make sure that they comply with those policies, but don't use that type of application to hide evidence, essentially.
So, and just a quick follow-up. So if you find out that if it's an invalid purpose, what's the penalty?
Actually, if I can grab a minute, I didn't bring the actual bill itself with me. So if I can grab one real quick. Thank you again, Madam Chair. I would actually defer. I don't believe that the consequence within Chapter 289 is set forth in the language of the bill, but the consequence would be the same consequence of any conduct that would violate Chapter 289. There would certainly be a civil consequence, and to the extent that there is criminal penalties, I don't know that there are for a violation of Chapter 289.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Questions? Senator Hansen, please.
Thanks, Speaker. Great to see you. The only question I got, what aren't they doing currently under, I mean, what's the current policy with how they're handling this, the use of phones?
Thank you again. Thank you for the record, Jason Frierson. Senator Hansen, I would let law enforcement answer that question. They have been at the table in the development of this, but they already have policies in place, and of course, no law enforcement agency would encourage using it to hide evidence. That's and this bill is not intended to suggest that they are. However, this is new technology, and you know, I think that folks are getting more comfortable with this type of technology, which is fine for personal use, but shouldn't be used to hide evidence in a law enforcement context. So, in my discussions with the law enforcement community, there was no opposition to the policy being required to be developed, and that officers not be allowed to violate that policy.
Very good. Thank you, Speaker. I'll wait for Mr. Callaway to come up then. I see him in the audience. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions? And we have people coming and going for bills, so if you see somebody leave, that's why. Speaker, I have a question. So do each law enforcement officer, no matter what law enforcement group they're, you know, highway patrol, sheriff, metro, it doesn't matter who they're with, do they pay for the cell phones for each officer to carry, or how does that work?
Thank you again, Madam Chair. For the record, Jason Frierson. I would defer to law enforcement. I think different agencies operate differently. I don't believe that all law enforcement agencies even have cell phones new enough to have this kind of technology, which initially generated a fiscal note on the part of some, and then they realized that I wasn't intending on requiring that they buy new equipment, but for whatever their standard protocols are, this would apply. So I would otherwise let the law enforcement community answer questions about their policies.
So I will, but I guess my follow-up is if they're, and this may be their question as well, so if they're not allocated a phone, if they're not given a phone, and they need a cell phone, and they're using their phone, how does this match that scenario?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill expressly addresses department-issued equipment for official use.
Thank you very much. All right, additional questions, Senator Gokachia? Nothing down there? All right, then Speaker, we'll hear from our experts in the audience. Do you have them coming up to give testimony or just support? Okay, perfect. All righty. All right, then we will go to support, opposition, and neutral, and we'll start with Mr. Callaway. How are you? Good to see you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Chuck Calloway for the record, representing the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. It's a pleasure to be here face-to-face with you today. We are in support of the bill, and we thank Speaker Frierson for working with us on this to both achieve his goals, which we share the concern for, and also to not have a negative impact on certain police operations which might require end-to-end encryption. And I'll be the first to say that I am certainly not an expert when it comes to technology and end-to-end encryption, but from what our IT people tell me is that end-to-end encryption protects a message from point A to point B from hackers, from people that shouldn't be able to see it. So in cases where you have sensitive law enforcement information, which was referenced in the last hearing you just heard, and maybe Homeland Security information or information on a current crime activity that's occurring, and that information is being relayed from one officer to another through some type of a mobile device, it's important to be able to have encryption. So there is a legitimate use for it. We certainly do not support officers using encryption to try to bypass the public records law or to try to bypass lawful discovery. And we believe that this bill meets that criteria and that balance. To the questions that were asked, number one, in the current body camera law that we worked on several sessions ago with then Senator Ford, now the Attorney General, there is a section in that prohibits an officer tampering with or interfering with the body camera footage. And I believe, and I'm not a lawyer, but I believe that if someone did something to intentionally mess up that video, whether it was intentionally cover the camera or play music to try to hide what's being said, I believe that would be covered in that statute, or that statute rather. The second question about a policy, at Metro we do have a very detailed policy. Currently on our agency, only supervisors, detectives, and certain officers in special assignments are actually issued a cell phone. We are working to have every officer on the department be issued a cell phone because there is, as was stated, a problem when you have officers that need to communicate and the department does not provide them with a phone for work use. Our policy does have strict criteria on what's allowed to be on that phone. As I said earlier, we're very concerned about hackers and cybercrime and that sort of thing, identity theft. A lot of agencies across the country have been targeted. Major law enforcement agencies have been targeted with cyber attack. And so our IT section has strict protocols for officers to only use authorized applications so that we don't run the risk of getting our systems infected through cyber attack. Let's see if I covered all the questions. And in addition, I'd like to mention that I think there was a case law about a year ago that stated that if you're using your private phone for business, I think in the case that was cited, it dealt with a county commissioner, if I remember correctly, where they were texting or sending messages on their private phone that was work-related, and I believe the court said that a public records request could be done in those cases where the line is crossed between using your private phone to do your actual work business. So I think there's case law regarding that, and I don't know if I covered all the questions, but if not, I'd be happy to answer any that are out there.
Thank you very much. And just to confirm, Metro does provide phones to their officers?
Yes, Madam Chair. As I said, currently, as of today, I believe that it's supervisors, detectives, certain special assignments that you're actually issued a cell phone. And then we are working towards, in the near future, issuing cell phones to all officers in the field.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Calloway? Senator Hansen.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just checking the record, you and Eric Spratley testified against the bill. Has it changed since? Okay. All right. That's really my only. So the old days of, 10 Adam 4 and all that's gone, huh?
Yes, Senator Chuck Calloway for the record. The old days of the call box where we had to go to phone in from the street on the call box are gone.
That was the last time I had any run-ins with law enforcement, so that's good. So
we did have some concerns with the initial draft of the bill, but the current language addresses our concerns.
Very good.
Again, we thank the Speaker for that.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Mr. Calloway. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Christine Saunders, and I'm the Policy Director with the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada. We believe this bill will help ensure transparency, which is essential for community trust, and so we urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the room in support? Then we'll go to the phone lines. Broadcasting when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to testify in support of AB 220, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 196, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller with the last 3 digits of 196, please press star 6 now to unmute yourself. Thank you. Please begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Senate Government Affairs Committee. I'm Eric Spratley, S-P-R-A-T-L-E-Y, for the Nevada Sheriffs and Chiefs Association. We thank Speaker Frierson for working with us to make this bill work for law enforcement leadership, and we support the bill. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 080, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hi, Jim Hoffman, Hoffman, Nevada Attorneys for Criminal Justice. NACJ supports AB 220. Public business should be as transparent as possible, and especially in the context of a criminal prosecution, thorough records are necessary in order to have a fair trial where the jury hears all relevant evidence. This is why we have public records laws and discovery obligations, which balance the need for transparency with the need for police to have secrecy in some of their investigations. But the use of secret messaging apps creates a loophole that can be used to evade these legal obligations without any policy justification. NACJ does not believe this practice serves any purpose. AB 220 is a good step towards ending this, and so NACJ supports it. Thank you.
Next caller.
If you recently just joined us, we are currently taking support on AB 220. If you would like to testify in support, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 887, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Corey Solferino representing the Washoe County Sheriff's Office, C-O-R-E-Y, S as in Sam, O-L, F as in Frank, E-R-I-N-O. I want to thank Speaker Frierson for bringing this piece of legislation forward and encourage your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Chair, you have no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you very much. Then we'll go to opposition. Is there anyone in the room in opposition? Seeing none, I'll go to broadcasting.
If you would like to testify in opposition of AB 220, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in opposition of AB 220, please press star 9 now. Chair, you have no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much. Then we'll go to neutral. Anyone in the room in neutral? Not seeing any, we'll go to broadcasting.
If you would like to testify neutral on AB 220, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers at this time.
Thank you very much. Then that closes that part. And Speaker, do you have some closing remarks?
Thank you again, Madam Chair. For the record, Jason Frierson. I thank you all for the questions. I really want to thank members of the law enforcement community that I think this is, one of the ways that I have been able to advance policy that I think is effective is collaborating early on the front end to make sure that we don't have unintended consequences, but as we have newer technology that we adapt to make sure that the justice system works properly. I think that this bill represents that type of effort.
Thank you very much, Speaker. And you're right, working it on the front end is the best. So thank you very much. I believe that unless I have any more conversation or questions, I will entertain a motion.
Move to pass, Chair.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Earnshaw. Second from Senator Neal. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. And I will give that particular floor statement to Senator Neal. All right, moving right along, we will go to Assembly Bill 270. And welcome Assemblyman O'Neill to Government Affairs. Glad to see you. Please go ahead.
Chair, before we even start, let me ask you, you want the real short, the short, or the full version? Because I've got it all for you.
Well, sir, just as I said earlier,
short.
it's your lucky day. You get to pick. If you think you can do it in the short and it'll do your bill justice, we're probably happy to have that.
Well, I may give you the full version then, because I really am very proud of this
Okay,
bill.
then I think you should.
If
Please
I
go
may,
ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. I do appreciate this time to present to you what I think is a very exciting bill for Carson City as a whole, and it's somewhat in memory of former Assemblyman Pete Livermore since he started this operation. For the record, I'm Assemblyman P.K. O'Neill, representing Assembly District 40, which covers all of Carson City and part of southeast Washoe County. As I said, today I'm here to introduce to you Assembly Bill 270 for your consideration. The proposed legislation seeks to enhance preservation efforts of the Nevada State Prison and the Stuart Indian School. With me today to assist on this important endeavor are Maurice White, Vice Chairman of the Nevada State Prison Preservation Society, and Stacy Montooth, the Executive Director of the Nevada Indian Commission. They are here to elaborate on the need and the opportunity this bill will provide for them, along with answering any questions. I'm going to start by providing some background on the Nevada State Prison and Stuart Indian School, and then provide an overall of the bill. Both the Nevada State Prison and Stuart Indian School are located here in Carson City. Each facility was created around the time Nevada gained statehood, way back in the 1800s. Both places are unique and tell the rich history of the state in its early days. For 150 years, the Nevada State Prison, NSP, played an important role in the state of Nevada, protecting its citizens, influencing architecture, providing employment, and amassing an impressive list of historical significant events. After NSP was decommissioned in 2012, the Nevada State Prison Preservation Society was formed as a nonprofit with the goal of preserving, interpreting, and developing this important site for the education of present and future generations. The society is still hard at work trying to get the prison museum up and running. The Stuart Indian School, for those who may not know its history, for 90 years fulfilled a federal commitment to pursue Native American education in Nevada. Not always the best, but they thought they had good intentions at the time. The school opened in 1890 with 37 students from local Washoe, Paiute, and Shoshone tribes, and 3 teachers. Over the years, hundreds of American Indian children attended the boarding school. The school closed in 1980 due to federal budget cuts and earthquake safety issues. The state of Nevada acquired the campus through several transactions during the 1990s. The facility is now used by the state for classes, training, and agency office, including the Nevada Indian Commission, which is located in the former superintendent's home. Today, the Stuart Indian School is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and the Stuart Indian School Cultural Center and Museum is the former administration building. The school grounds are often used for powwows and other events to celebrate the rich history of Nevada's indigenous people. A very brief walkthrough through the bill. Then I'll turn it over to the representatives with the Nevada State Prison Preservation Society and the Stuart Indian School to provide additional testimony and probably go into better depth on some of the bill issues. Sections 1, 2, and 5 of the bill require the proceedings from fees charged for use of the buildings or grounds of the former Stuart Indian School to be credited to the Nevada Indian Commission's gift fund to carry out programs to preserve and maintain the building and grounds of the former Stuart Indian School. Section 3 revises the allocation of money in the Silver State Industries Endowment Fund for the maintenance of modern structures, buildings, and other properties of the prison and administration costs, and eliminates the prohibition on spending or transferring the reserve principles of the fund. Section 4 creates an exemption in current law that prohibits the sale of alcohol within 1/2 mile of any Department of Corrections facility that houses 125 or more inmates. This provision will allow the sale or consumption of beer and wine in the Nevada State Prison special events. And going into a little more detail, it'll be in such a way that it'll be brought on and left after the event is over with. It'll be served in red Solo cups or some other type of a container, so it cannot be hidden or secreted any place in the building. The Preservation Society is committed to doing all their own cleanups without trustees afterwards. So we've gone to the protection in that regard, so it can't be smuggled back in to the facility next door, the Warm Springs Corrections Center. Then Section 6 will allow for the transfer of the reserve principal of the endowment fund for the historic preservation of Nevada State Prison. 7, the bill ensures that any funding generated by a nonprofit corporation contracted to operate the prison as a museum belongs solely to the corporation. 8 and 9 eliminates the trust fund for further study development of Nevada State Prison and requires funding remaining in the fund on July 1, 2021 to be deposited in the fund for historic preservation of the state prison. That will conclude my remarks, and as I said, both Ms. Montooth and Mr. White are here for questions. Otherwise, I'm available for questions now before I bring them up.
Thank you very much, Assemblyman. Any questions from the committee? Everybody's quiet today. Vice Chair.
Not a question. I appreciate the bill. I really appreciate everything you're doing, trying to preserve, Nevada State Prison and the Stuart Indian School. And I'm probably dating myself here, but I actually, growing up in Las Vegas in the 1970s, I knew a friend of the family, and she had gone to Stuart Indian School. So I don't know if there are many of us can say that, but yep. Thank you for bringing the bill.
Thank you. I appreciate that. As I said, I'm really excited about this bill, both from an economic standpoint for Carson City, but also from the historic part of what it offers to our state, to visitors.
Well, I too was aware, of course, of the Stuart Indian School because of my family's history and my father being in education, and I think it's an important piece of our history of Nevada. Additional questions from the committee? Senator Hansen.
Not so much, no, I like the bill. We're all talking about old times. I remember competing against Stuart Indians. I remember their uniforms, they were red and white. Yeah, they always kicked our butt too, so another story. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. All right, seeing no more questions, we'll go to support and opposition and neutral. And thank you so much. I enjoyed the history of that, and I hope that it's preserved in print form as well.
Thank you, Chair. With your help today, we will do that.
Thank you. All right, in the room, we will go to support. If you would like to come forward, welcome to Government Affairs. And I promise I did not wear this jewelry today because I knew that we were doing this. I sort of just got up and got dressed, and I think I wore the right things. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the record, I'm Stacy Montooth, the Executive Director of the Nevada Indian Commission. My last name is spelled Montooth. Thank you so much for your time. It is truly great to see people face to face. It's been so long. I am so excited about AB 270 to create a revenue stream for our cultural center for the Nevada Indian Commission will be monumental. And I stand for any questions you might have. I'd like to just make one commentary. Mr. Senator, there are in fact two people in this room who have a direct descendancy to the Stuart Indian School. My grandmother, Margaret Oseguera, as well as the former speaker. She was raised at Stuart Indian School.
Thank you, and Chair, if the friend I knew growing up in Las Vegas, her name was Irene Ryan, and she had been a student at Stuart Indian School and then later moved down to Las Vegas, and she and her husband, Jim, were family friends.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee. For the record, Maurice White. I speak to you today in my private capacity as the Vice President of the Nevada State Prison Preservation Society and not as a member of the Carson City Board of Supervisors. Thank you for your time and consideration on this bill. We feel that this will allow us to bring the final piece of the puzzle for Carson City tourism. With the historical, the educational, and the cultural opportunities at the Nevada State Prison, we believe that this is an opportunity not just for Carson City tourism, but for the state as well. And in regards to how we do tourism in this state, this will be a worldwide attraction for Carson City. Also, I'd just like to say that the realignment of the financial part of this bill doesn't remove any oversight that we as a Preservation Society endorse and support. It will just simply allow us to operate in an easier manner and bring this facility to its full potential in a much more timely nature. Thank you. I'd like to have any questions.
Thank you very much, and this is a very important part of Nevada history. Questions from anyone? Thank you very much. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Marla McDade Williams with Strategies 360, representing the Reno Sparks Indian Colony today. We just want to go on record in support of this bill and thank Assemblyman O'Neill for recognizing that there was a similar bill last session for the Stuart Indian Museum, and he took the opportunity to add it to his bill, so we're very appreciative of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. My name is Ernie Adler, and I'm representing the Pyramid Lake Indian tribe, and they strongly support this bill. I mean, the Stuart Indian School has a rich history, and it certainly was a big part of Native life in Nevada for many, many years and should be preserved. I personally, it was my first office when I was an attorney. I worked for Nevada Indian Legal Services, and their offices used to be out at the Stuart Indian School, so I got to experience it firsthand. And it's just a wonderful place. And it is good to preserve it because back in the 70s when I worked there, I recall that they had some of the houses which the staff stayed in, they used them for fire practice with the Nevada State Fire Marshal's office and the Carson City Fire Department, which is really horrible that wasn't preserved and they were allowed to be burnt down like that. So I think it's really imperative this be preserved. As a personal note, I was chief criminal deputy in the 80s and got to experience the Nevada State Prison firsthand, and it also has a very rich history. Just as a story, one time I was walking across the yard with then Warden George Sumner, and I said to George, I said, how safe is this walking across the yard? He said, don't worry. He said, we've got a guy up there on the catwalk with a shotgun, and if you're taken hostage, he'll shoot you and your assailant with birdshot, and you'll be able to get away. And I said, well, that's not really particularly comforting, but so it has a wonderful history as well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Adler. We appreciate that. Any additional comments? Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the room in support? If not, we'll go to the phone lines. Broadcasting, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. If you would like to testify in support of AB 270, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in support of AB 270, please press star 9 now. Chair, you have no callers in support at this time.
Thank you very much. Then we'll go to neutral, or I'm sorry, opposition in the room. And if there's no one in the room, we'll go to opposition on the phone lines.
If you would like to testify in opposition of AB 270, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you very much. We'll go to neutral in the room. Seeing none, we'll go to neutral on the phone lines.
If you would like to testify neutral on AB 270, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 956, please slowly spell and state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. I am Charlie Donahue, Donohue, and I serve as the administrator of the Division of State Lands. In that capacity, I also serve as a state land registrar. The State Land Office is neutral on Assembly Bill 270. However, the agency would like to thank the bill sponsor, Assemblyman O'Neill, for working with the agency on the amendment that generated this first reprint and clarifying the need to designate which structures and portions of the grounds will be subject to the special use permits under Section 2.5. This is a critical element of the bill because legislation also authorizes the museum director to issue these special use permits for events that generate revenue for various programming to preserve the facility as well as the cultural integrity of the former Stuart Indian School. It's nice to have this process more clearly defined. Madam Chair, thank you and members of the committee for allowing me to comment, and I'd be happy to answer any of your questions or the committee members.
Thank you very much. I don't see any. Is there any other callers on the line broadcasting?
Chair, you have no more callers neutral at this time.
Thank you very much. All right. Speaker Oseguera, you don't have anything to say? I'm so disappointed.
Madam
All
Chair,
right.
if I could, may I?
Please.
Just wanted to recognize Speaker Oseguera, because as far as I know, he's our first and only Native American Speaker of the Nevada Assembly in Nevada history. So very, very great to have you here and supporting this bill.
Well, there are some of us that served under him, and so we're proud to be able to say that as well. So thank you very much for attending Senate Government Affairs. All right, with that, I'll close public testimony. Oh, Mr. Assemblyman O'Neill, please come up for closing remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. I just want to put one thing on the record. As a politician, we always like to take credit for everything good and blame somebody else for everything bad. But in this case, I've really got to give credit to Marlon McDade when I was in conversation with her, bringing this forward and talking to me and explaining to me some things, since I did have a little hesitancy. And she deserves a lot of the credit for this bill. And I just wanted to bring that forward to you all and get that on the record. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that. We share your fondness with Ms. McDade Williams and thank her for everything she's done for this state prior to her current job as well. So thank you very much.
Otherwise, I have nothing further to say, and I thank you for your support and assistance.
Thank you very much. Well, with that, I will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 270, but I also will entertain a motion to do pass.
Move due, Pastor.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second? Second from Senator Hansen. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? Okay, well, motion passes. So congratulations, Assemblyman, and those that are in attendance. Thank you very much for attending today. So with that, we have one last thing left today, and that is public comment. So is there anyone in the room who would like to give public comment? Seeing none. Go ahead, please.
May I make public comment, Chair?
You may, sir.
I just wanted to, I think on behalf of the other committee members, just want to thank you for being such a great chairperson this session and showing such great leadership. and, making sure that we are, actively involved and making sure, bringing out the best in us. That's for sure. I think bringing out the best in us as legislators. And we picked up a small little,
Gosh.
we have a card to thank you for your leadership. And your gift is coming. It's a watercolor, kind of an old Nevada watercolor by the father of a friend of ours. That it's hopefully going to be here before Signy Die. But for now, I'll have to give you just the plastic picture. But we thought that would look nice. Kind of reminds us of the old Vegas we grew up in.
You are all too kind. This has been a very enjoyable committee. It's a pleasure to serve with all of you, and I appreciate you all taking an active part in all we do in these committees, because it does take a team and a village, as they say. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. It touches me that you all have agreed to serve and show up and be willing participants in this process. So thank you very much. And I am so excited about the watercolor.
We thought you'd like that, because that's the Vegas we grew up in.
Absolutely. Very excited. With that, we will go to public comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. We would also like to extend real quick our gratitude for working with such an amazing committee. Broadcast very much has enjoyed this committee.
Well, Broadcast, we cannot thank you enough, because you have really done yeoman's work this session for all of us, and I look forward to seeing you in the building down in Las Vegas. So please go ahead with public comment when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to speak in public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, your public line is open and working, and you have no callers at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. And Broadcasting, thank you again. And we'll see you upon our return, I'm sure, or who knows, we may have another committee. It's all very fluid around here. So with that, I thank all of you, and we will adjourn. Thank you very much.